Hello.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
I am too, and I'm excited we have Riverside and we have this opportunity and this option because it's pouring out, and I'm really glad to not go outside. And COVID.
100%.
I'm glad I don't have to give you the COVID that I have in my body. There's also that.
There's a definite plus to post-COVID world of doing things like this. Even though I way prefer being in the space with people, but it's still nice to have this option.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, welcome. Can you introduce yourself and tell us your business?
Sure. I'm Rochelle Hargrave, and I'm the owner of High Vibe Cowork, which is a virtual community for women entrepreneurs and creators. I started it at the end of 2020, and as of December 1st, I just went full-time. So I left my full-time job to go full-time as of December 1st, and yeah, that's me. I host daily meetings kind of to support that group, whether it's around like accountability, mindset, virtual co-working. So those are the kind of daily meetings that I host for the group.
And you were working full-time prior to this and doing it kind of on the side as well, right?
Yeah. So I was managing, my most recent previous job was I was managing 2 local Pilates studios and then kind of doing this in the off hours.
So you thought, I'll just take the leap. It'll be super easy. No big thing. No difficult transitions, right?
It was a long time coming. I'd been wanting to do it for a while, but it's really scary, and the finances, stuff like that, and supporting my family based on this company that I just kind of made up, and putting food on the table and things like that was really scary. But it's been so nice to not have that, like, I always felt like previously I was doing one company a disservice. Like if I was working on High Vibe, then I wasn't providing service enough for the studio. And then I had this like animosity towards the studio because it was taking away time and energy from High Vibe, which is where like my heart really, really lies. So I'm really lucky because I have a dad who's an entrepreneur. So he's been really influential in guiding me and kind of seeing that path and seeing that it can be done. When he actually started his business, he was a single father of 5 kids. So wow. He has been a big inspiration. So.
Dang.
Yeah.
What was
so tell us. Yeah. What was his business?
So he owns a document management company and he works with car dealers. So he owns a SaaS company and he takes all the paperwork from car dealers and scans it up to the cloud.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Didn't even know that was a job.
I feel like we learn that every interview. Like, that's a job? That's a job? Oh, that's a job. I want that.
Yeah, and somebody was like, you know what, you need this done. I'm going to do it for you and you're going to pay me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Smart so guy. How did you come up with High Vibe Cowork, speaking of coming up with jobs that need to be done?
Yeah, I had been part of like networking groups and facilitated different groups and roundtables. And during 2020, I was in sales for a company and I was cold calling. I had to make about 200 cold calls a week for that company. And everything was virtual. And I realized I wasn't showing up for myself the way that I typically would in an office. And so I just said, how can I bring in my community? And like, I'm sure if I'm struggling with this, other people are too. And so I reached out to my network and said, hey, I'm going to open a Zoom room on Monday for 30 minutes. We're going to plan out our week, set goals and intentions for the week. And then on Friday, we're going to get together and say, how did you do with what you set out to do? Let's celebrate a win and what's a lesson you took from the week, and then how are you going to practice rest and gratitude over the weekend to get ready for next week. And I did that, like, just kind of ran it as a beta the last 10 weeks of 2020 leading up to Christmas, and it was just really impactful, and it was really cool to kind of see what opening a Zoom room can be to the community, and so I just kind of have grown it from there.
So interesting, because when I was going through your website and what I know from you, having met with you before, I kind of just thought this is everything's virtual because we have to be, and but this was very intentional. You wanted to do something that was virtual. You didn't need a brick and mortar to do what you wanted to do, like a typical co-work space or something like that.
Yeah, when I was I actually have a notebook that I was looking back through before I did the Bossy in October, that event. And in like 2019, I was like journaling about having a brick and mortar space and just being surrounded by other, women who are just going after what they want and creative. And COVID, the silver lining is that it has opened up what this could be to so many more people. Like my current cohort has people from Toronto and Philly and Baltimore and Florida and Texas. And so these people would never have been able to meet if it weren't for the virtual opportunity of it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Is that how you have it set up now? Like a Monday, Friday?
Yeah, Monday, Friday are the bookends of it. And then Tuesday and Thursday is virtual co-working. So again, open a Zoom room, and then you kind of have your things that you want to get done. And so I just put on some music. My current favorite playlist for it is medieval lo-fi beats, if anyone's looking for a new playlist.
Medieval lo-fi beats.
Yeah.
Can we hey, Jazzy, can you plug in a medieval lo-fi beat here?
I don't even know what that is. Never even heard of it.
I'm so intrigued. I can't wait until this is over so I can go here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so then, because it's nice, a lot of times, like, people are doing creative work, whether it's, like, their newsletter or website copy or things like that. So I was trying to find something that didn't have lyrics, but still kind of, like, kept you in that creative space, and found that, and it's worked. And then Wednesday, I do a Millionaire Morning Mindset call. So Mondays and Fridays are very tactical. How are you going to move the needle forward? Then the Wednesdays kind of take, from the 20,000 foot level, what blocks are coming up. Sometimes I do journal prompts. Sometimes we just talk through what's going well. Sometimes I do like money stuff, because I think as women entrepreneurs, money can be something that's weird to talk about. Mm-hmm. And weird to kind of, it's one of those things that what I have found, people think that everybody else has it figured out and they're the only ones who don't.
Yeah.
And when you talk about it, you're like, nobody has it figured out. Everyone struggles with it.
And I don't even think that's just on women. I think it's everybody. Like, you have to have this false forward of, I have my shit together because I'm a business owner. And it's like, even when employees come in and they ask you the random question and you have to answer, and it's like, I'm going to answer it, but that's not like in a book somewhere. Like, I just made that up.
Right. And I know 90% of it's true. The other 10% is likely true.
Yeah.
And I may decide that was the wrong answer and like change my mind, but like, you just have to have this false, like, I have the answers. Like, I know the answer, and I have the money, and we're going to pay our bills, and they see that they got their paycheck every week, or they see that you're still open. So people just assume you have it figured out, when really in the back end, you're like scrounging pennies and taking out credit cards. And so I totally understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of the structure of the week. I run it in 10-week cohorts. So, everyone who joins, they start week 1 together and they end week 10 together. And it's very niche agnostic, which is really cool, because whether you're running a restaurant or selling dog treats or a coach, the journey of building a business is so similar. Like, we all go through such similar struggles, and we all question ourselves and doubt and fail. No matter what you're kind of serving the world with, you go through that journey very similarly.
Yeah, that's something we've always found in Bossy, that doesn't matter with business. We all have the same struggles.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am going to apologize if my cat shows up on the mic, but I can't keep the door shut, apparently.
No, I love it. So every 10 weeks. So do you have people that, reach out to you and you just started and they're like, but can I get into this one because I need it now? Do you let that happen, or do you say, you got to wait? And is that a struggle and difficult choice to make? Yeah,
because I cap it at 6 people. So if is at 6 people, it's at 6 people. I found that that's kind of the magic number of, with 30-minute calls on Mondays and Fridays, everyone gets a chance to speak and really get into what they're doing. So that's actually why I started my online platform. If anyone's heard of Mighty Networks, it's my online platform where I host, so people who can't get into a cohort but still want to engage with the community, or maybe even see what the community is about. Is it going to be valuable for me to spend that amount of time together? And so it's just a digital platform to host conversations and different topics, and I have a couple courses on there, things like that, so people can still engage with the community while they're waiting for the next cohort to open up.
Interesting.
Is that done by like video or lives or like conversational text?
Yeah, it's kind of all of those things. There's like monthly lives that you can have on there, but there's kind of written discussion. So I have 8 or 10 different topics that are pertinent to entrepreneurs. And so whatever you're kind of in the need for, whether it is inspiration or education or just connection or celebration, like look what I did. I think that's something a lot of people don't do, is it feels weird to like, look what I did, look how great I am, but it's so inspiring and important to celebrate those things along the way. So yeah.
Yeah, we're not allowed to brag, because if we brag, we're bitches.
Right.
Yeah.
Prashant, what's something, what is something extraordinary that you've done recently?
Ooh, extraordinary that I've done recently. It's not necessarily extraordinary, but it's kind of cool. As I was on a commercial with Jazzy, who does the production. Yeah, she put out like a model shoot for this home meal delivery service that's now in Rochester. And so I was on the commercial for that. So I just got the commercial the other day. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, cool. I was just talking to her yesterday about that.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about advertising. Yeah, that is so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think that's extraordinary.
I think it's pretty extraordinary.
Is it your first acting gig?
It was my first acting gig.
Are you gonna go on Broadway now?
I don't think Broadway would have me after watching my performance.
I'm sure it was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it was cool.
So back in late 2020, what would you say the hardest hump or the largest struggle or the biggest issue that you didn't see when you decided to go live?
That is a great question. Pricing. Charging for, I was working with a coach back in 2021, when I was like, okay, I'm going to take this seriously. Like, I think this is a business. And the first thing she had me do was take just out of my vocabulary, because I kept saying to her, I'm just opening a Zoom room. Like, anybody can do that. And so accepting that there's something impactful and powerful about the Zoom room and creating that space. It's like, anybody can create a space. Who am I to like charge good money for that? A livable wage for opening a Zoom room and being like, what are you accomplishing this week? So really stepping into the fact that my gifts serve the world in a way that deserve money.
Mm-hmm. That's a tough thing too.
Yeah. Especially when you're not like purchasing a product to sell, right? So you're like, okay, well, I have to make this money back even if I don't pay myself, right? So you're just like, the product is inside of you. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's hard too, because when I step into that, it's like, if I fail, it's me. Like, it's people don't like me, or they don't want me, or they don't find value in me and what I'm serving, So that was really hard.
Yeah, that's a tough thing.
Were you pleased with the results?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that's also weird to hear about. Like, I don't know why we do this to ourselves. It's like, we doubt ourselves, and then when we hear other people are impacted by it, we're like, no, like, I don't need to accept your compliment, but thank you, you know? So
we feel that a lot in Bossy. Kelly and I talk about it. Like, we like feel guilty. We're
yeah.
like, well, we're just trying to do what's right and like help people because we have the knowledge and we have the connections, you know, and it's like, well, it's also time and energy and the cost of the knowledge, right? Like, we've had the struggle. we've learned it however we've learned it, which is usually the hard way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mostly the hard way.
And one of the things too, like one of the kind of money blocks that I had to get through early on was my mom was a social worker. She worked in jail. She worked for Alternatives for Battered Women. Like, she made an impact in the community. And my dad worked for Bausch and Lomb, where he made an income. And they were mutually exclusive. You can't make an impact and an income. And I didn't, like, we never had that conversation around the dinner table. It was just something that growing up I just felt. And so through this journey, it's like, you can make an impact and an income. You know, you can charge for what you're worth and be of service, you know?
That's fascinating on so many levels. I literally, my husband and I have the conversation of like, we do what we do so that we can afford to live an average life and still make a difference. And it's like, you don't, I don't know, like, you think about like the people at the top of the very large not-for-profits, you know, bringing in the six-figure incomes, and you're like, but shouldn't that money go to the feet? But then they are, you know, they are working. But yeah, that's fascinating that that's not a conversation people really have. It's just something that's like mutually understood for some reason. Not that it's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And we take money and we're like, if you're rich, you're bad. If you like make a lot of money, then you're a bad person. And there are a lot of like people who don't make a lot of money that aren't good people either. Like, they're not necessarily connected. And I think too, what we can do as business owners for our community is be good people and make as much money as we possibly can so that we can help and provide services to really good causes. You know, that's, I think, where that's my goal, you know, is to make money and put it back into, you know, all the business. Like, I love this mug I got from Susan Weiner Ceramics. And like, I love not purchasing this from Amazon, but pouring back into this community, you know?
And that's something that is not cheap, right? So like, you have to have the financial means to not order from Amazon.
Right. Right.
You know, it's not just convenience. A lot of it is cheaper, or to go to, you know, the big box stores instead of local. But yeah, it always does. I love shopping local. Yeah. It always makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Especially a Bossy local.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you ever find, oh, that's a good question I came up with. Do you ever find that it's a struggle to hold people accountable virtually versus if you were to be in person?
I don't think virtually versus in person has been the biggest struggle. I would say the biggest struggle in holding people accountable is that life happens, and so the Friday calls not being like, why didn't you get your stuff done? And it's like, well, sorry that my sprinkler system went off on Tuesday when I was supposed to do A, B, and C.
Podcast.
Right. And it's like, so finding that balance of like grace with everybody, but also like, okay, here's what you said you were going to do. How did you do? And like, even if on Monday we think that these things are important, but on Tuesday we get an interview from like our dream job, not accomplishing those things isn't bad. It's just your week went different than you anticipated. And so finding that balance of like holding them accountable, but having the grace and leeway of life happens, not making anybody leave that Friday call feeling like they failed or they're less than or they're not good enough because they didn't do what they said they thought they should on Monday.
Yeah, that's a tricky thing to navigate, and I think that right there is why you deserve to be paid for what you do, because not everybody could do that. That's tough, and being able to do that with grace is really important.
Yeah. And it's not for everybody. Like, I've had a couple people who've joined and been like, no, I needed my ass kicked on Friday. Like, but for my niche and my group and my community, that's what they need,
Well, and that's a huge life lesson as a business ownership or an entrepreneur, is that you do have to balance it, and you can't just call in sick today. You literally have to adjust things. Right. So it's not as simple of, I'm going to call in sick, somebody else is going to pick this up for me, I'll go back into work tomorrow and start fresh. It's, I have to call in sick today, I'm the only one that does this.
Right.
So where does it fit in my priority list? Can it wait? Does it have to get done at 10 p.m. because it just has to get done? Like sales tax, if I didn't get to it, it has to get done. But if it's a social media post or an advertising campaign that I didn't get live on time, it's going to hurt, but it can wait.
Yeah. And that's
a huge lesson.
I think it's important when you're like starting a business to think about the lifestyle you want to have around the business. Like, I am really lucky because I get to get my daughter off the bus every day. And also, I built it in 10-week cohorts throughout the quarter so that when it ends, I have 2 weeks off. And I've like naturally kind of built that into the schedule because I love facilitating conversations and I love hosting those groups, and I need a break to just like not be the person in charge of those calls and showing up every day. And when my dad started the business, this is something I got from him. He was like, he was a consultant, and consultants get paid really well, but once you stop getting paid, you're just on the hustle for the next contract. And he's like, I wanted to build a business where I had this continual stream of income where once they become a customer, they're pretty much a customer for a long period of time. And so the sales cycle for him is just building on top of, not trying to replace as much. So I think that's a really important question when you're starting a business, is like, what type of lifestyle do I want to have around this business?
Yeah, that's 100%. Important. He sounds like a real smart guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I think I'll keep him.
How did you come up with the name?
So when I knew that, when I was working for the software company, it was a very like male dominated industry, and I knew it wasn't going to be forever, but I actually went to school to be a teacher, and I didn't even know what else was out there. Like we were talking before, it's like, that's a business. Mm-hmm. And so I started going to different networking groups and just meeting people out in the community and really seeing what them and their businesses were. And so I tried like Toastmasters and BNI and all the different networking groups. And I would leave them and I would call my dad and he'd be like, how high vibe was that? And so it was just kind of this like bar that I would judge these different events that I would go to and how I felt after. And so that kind of stuck, and I couldn't find exactly what I wanted, and so that's what I created, and it just felt aligned.
I love that. That's a great story.
Oh, thanks.
So, are there other companies out there doing the same kind of thing you're doing? It seems pretty unique what you're doing. It's not co-work. It's not just coaching. It's a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think there are virtual co-working spaces, especially post-pandemic, and there's physical co-working spaces. I think the cohort aspect of it is unique. It's not this open enrollment where you kind of come, but you're with a group that you kind of move it through. And I forgot what else I was going to say. But yeah, so it's kind of this, like, I've also found, that's where I was going to go with it. I have also found that a lot of people who create physical co-working spaces don't like to host the meetings. They like to create the space and you kind of do what you need to do in the space, but they don't want to like facilitate conversations. They don't want to host the workshops. They're there to just create the space. And one of my gifts is like the facilitation of the conversation and kind of pulling different ideas from, you know, what people say and reflecting back to them. Here's what I heard. Here's, you know, how you can grow into whatever's next for you.
Can you talk to me and explain a little bit more about the Zoom room and what that looks like and how that goes? Because I have a couple questions.
Yeah. So it's just, you know, show up on, I normally start them at like 10:30. We have like a 5-minute kind of grace period for people to come in, and then I put a couple prompts in the chat. I've gone back and forth between like having a Canva up of like, you know, here are our prompts. But people like to see everybody's faces, you know, really, it has really created this cool community where people share very intimate parts of what they're going through. Goal setting and building a business is very vulnerable. And so they've really connected. And so I like the chat because then everybody can have everybody's face on screen so you can really see them. So I put the questions in the chat. Then I'll put on some music for people to kind of sit and think about it. And then I just popcorn style pick people. I take notes on Mondays of what they say they're going to do, because a lot of times on Fridays they're like, what did I say I was going to do? So I keep track, kind of give everybody 5-ish minutes, and then on to the next person.
And can they communicate directly with each other, or is that something they can do in private chats and stuff like that?
Yeah, I keep the chat function open if they want to message people. I also have a WhatsApp group, so they can message on there if they want to talk, you know, privately, or just send something out to the group through that too.
Right, because what you're offering is so unique, because there are people from all over the country, other countries it sounds like, and that's so unique. In the beginning of the pandemic, you know, Kelly and I are in the restaurant industry and we're part of the Restaurant Association, so we talk a lot with the people in our area. But once we started doing these virtual calls and we had people from all over the state, it was so helpful to hear what's going on downstate, what's happening in New York City, and now being able to connect with those people is so great. This is what's working for us here, what's working for you there. This is your touristy time, ours is at a different time. How did that go? So being able to connect with people, even if it's not your industry, from around the world someday, I'm sure, as things are going for you, is so valuable. So it's nice to know that there's that ability to connect, because I feel like if I was in that, like, I want to talk the entire time. So that must be hard to moderate.
Well, it's cool too, because like, and one of the things I really like about the group aspect is it brings so many different life experiences and paradigms and filters in which to understand problems or struggles or ideas or creatives. To like, if you have a problem, here's what I'm struggling with, you have so many different people to like pick their brain about it, which is really, really cool, because there's so many things that even as a facilitator I never would have thought of, because, you know, someone else just thinks so differently than me. And so it's this really collaborative sort of space to bring ideas, questions, thoughts to.
Right.
Do you have women and men, or just women?
Just women.
Okay. Is that a conscious choice, or is that just the way it's kind of naturally working out?
I naturally kind of stumbled into it. You know, when I was selling, it was a very male-dominated industry, so I seeked out like feminine energy type of spaces, and it just was so incredible and so collaborative that it organically fell into that, and I've just been intentional with it since then.
I love the mind of women, and it's like a genetic thing, right? So like, there's like biology, and you hear people like women and men are from Mars and women are from Venus or whatever, but like really like biology, like our brains work different and they're meant to work different for various ways, right? And it's just fascinating. Like I get super sciencey about stuff, but like it's fascinating to me to sit in a room full of women in 2023. Right, because that room full of women would have looked so different 500 years ago, right? But we're still figuring shit out and getting it done. And it's the amount of minds that it takes to get through life, and I feel like we're supposed to be in a group together. And I'm not discounting the male mindset and what they bring to the table, because it's necessary and important, and I love it. But it's just that, like, it's almost like a instinctual, I don't know, for as catty as women can be, like when we get in the room together, like the power that you can feel, it's like it's supposed to be that way. Like we're supposed to be navigating the world and helping each other out.
Yeah.
And I just love it.
Yeah, and I always leave bossy meetings feeling like that. Like I feel so uplifted and inspired, and like I can do effing anything I set my mind to.
You absolutely can.
And it's
we almost need them like every day, because then you go to sleep and you wake up the next day and it's like life again. And I'm like, I want to go challenge the world. Like I need my bossy vibe back.
Yeah.
Well, and we were doing that at the beginning of the pandemic. We were doing a Zoom. It was a Zoom room, I guess. We were doing that once a week, and then went to once a month, and it was so helpful. Like, I need that connection.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that part of why I think it falls off is because it's not urgent. It's super important, but it's not urgent. And as, women entrepreneurs and women in life, there are so many things on our list that are important that it can easily fall to the side. And one time I was driving to a bossy meeting, and I was on the phone with my sister, and it just had been like a long day, and I was like, I'm so exhausted, like I don't feel like leaving the house. And she's like, how do you push yourself to go to this meeting when like all you want to do is crash on your couch? And I was like, I remember how I felt when I left the last one, and I need to feel like that again. I just need that in my day right now. So
we say that all the time. We do. Because there's sometimes
I'll be like, I can't do it. And then you do it, and you're like, oh, I'm so happy I did it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that validation.
And we 100% get it, because like it is too. It's just it's a free night, right? So like it's usually you've already set your calendar, so you're like, okay, I don't have to do anything right now, and then you're like, I could do nothing, and that would be really nice. So what did Marshawn want to be when you were 10?
I wanted to, it's funny that you asked that, because I was just going through a book with my daughter the other night. I bought her the same one, and I wrote in it when I was 9, and I bought her the same one, and so she's going to like write down her answers. But I always wanted to be a veterinarian. Like I always loved animals. I loved being around animals, and I wanted to help them. And then I realized that you had to put animals down, and I was like, or like see them sick and hurt. And I was like, never mind.
Yeah.
So
how many animals do you have now?
We don't have any at the moment. We had to put actually both of our dogs down in 2022. So it was a rough year.
Yeah.
Sorry for that.
That's so sad.
Thank you. Yeah.
And you wanted to be a teacher, or you went to school to be a teacher?
Yeah, I actually, so then like middle school, I always played sports growing up, and I played 3 sports all through middle school and high school. And so movement was a big part of my life. So I went to school to be a phys ed teacher. And graduated with that, and I coached high school sports for a couple years. I actually currently coach my daughter's lacrosse team, which is really fun. But that's like an hour, and I leave that hour like, how did I do this for 6 hours? Like, herding these cats.
Are you in Irondequoit?
I'm not. I'm in Rush. So we're in the Rush Henrietta School District.
Every time I hear lacrosse, I just assume people are in Irondequoit. I grew up in Greece, and like I did not know what lacrosse was, except for I had a cousin who lives in Irondequoit, and like so like he knew it, you know. So it was like one of those things growing up that I just always assume people are in Irondequoit if they play lacrosse.
Yeah, the West Side didn't really have it when I was growing up. I went to Gates, and we didn't have it. So I'd never even like watched a lacrosse game until I started dating my husband. He played lacrosse at Geneseo, and so you know he's been coaching at Rush Henrietta for forever, and so my daughter's gotten into it, and you know, it's fun. It's really fun.
That's fun. Well, and coaching and education, I mean, that leads right into what you're doing today, so good picks there.
Yeah. It feels like this really interesting culmination of my background in education, you know, and thinking about my path. And when I left teaching, I felt like, wow, I was so passionate about this. I put so much time and energy in getting my degree and applying for jobs and long-term subbing and all those things. And so it kind of felt like this failure that I wasn't finishing that path. Mm-hmm. And then gaining all this experience in small business. When I started with the software company, our first, they had just signed their first customer outside of New York State. And then in the decade that I was with them, they were then had customers in 26 states. So that growth, I was able to learn so much about so many different things that I, you know, if you're in, you know, a bigger company, you kind of have your silo, but I was kind of a jack of all trades there. So it's like this weird culmination of my background in teaching and what I learned in small business kind of meshing together.
I have to say I 100% get that. I have a degree, a master's in special ed.
Yep.
A very expensive degree, and I am obviously not teaching at the moment. So, yeah. And it is a weird, like, the things that you learn that you don't, the people will be like, oh, you have a master's in special ed and you own a restaurant, ha ha ha. And I'm like, you have no idea.
No, right.
Yeah.
Like, I use so many hillside tricks at work on a regular basis. So that's how Kelly and I got to be close, is that we worked at Hillside together. And yeah, I'm like, I use tips and tricks from that experience and that education all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have lots of different terms. You're hillsiding, you're being a hillsider. We have lots of... It comes into play all the time.
I'd be like, oh, my employee just hillsided it. She knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I hear you.
And it's not a negative thing, Hillside, if you're listening.
Not at all.
If you want a message, we'll talk more about it.
Yeah,
it's just a trait of behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
A behavior trait.
Right.
So what does high vibe... What does Mershon... Okay, I'm going to rephrase. So... Here's you today. You've told us about your business, how you've gotten to where you are. It sounds absolutely amazing. Where do you see this right here? Do you see that in 5-10 years from now, it's still this and you're happy and you love it? Or do you see you're like, no, I have goals and dreams and aspirations for what this is going to look like? Yeah. And either answer is fine.
Yeah, I'm a dreamer. I'm like very much, it's funny. My husband is very much like, he's a special ed teacher as well. And so he's very like even keel, everything's fine. Like, and I'm like, no, we're going to do all the things. Like, you know, the beginning of the year, I'm like, Brian, what's your word for the year? He's like, what are you talking about? You know? And I'm like, where do you want to be 5 years from now? He's like, I don't, close to retirement. I don't know. Right. And, so yeah, I definitely see, I would love to write a book, and I'm kind of in like ideation phase of a book. So I would love to take High Vibe where I wasn't running all the meetings, and other people can kind of step in and be like, I want to facilitate, you know, cohorts too. And, you know, it's not just me running the cohorts. It's more, you know, can be more community led, or having people kind of step into those roles. Well,
and being virtual, you've already set yourself up for that. You could have these run all over everywhere. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Endless.
I think it'd be cool to do retreats too. I think retreats would be a really cool because it's in the same idea of like collaborative, like pulling people in to do what they're great at and just have people leave feeling incredible and inspired and excited and connected.
That's awesome.
That would be awesome. We actually just interviewed Angelina Hilton, just finished her book.
Oh, really?
She just wrote a book, yeah.
So
you should reach out. And she worked with a local woman.
Ebony Nicole Smith. I was just editing her doing her transcription. So,
oh, were you?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I
Ebony
didn't know
Nicole
she had a
Smith.
business name, but yeah, she worked with her, and it's very similar, it sounds like, to what you're doing for your business, in the fact that she has check-ins and you're expected to write for like a certain amount of time, and then you have to check back. So it's like a constant like accountability.
Yeah.
There's a person there. But yeah, so she just finished her book. So
Cool.
I'm excited to see what happens with that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I know people that like to do retreats. So
Yeah.
if you ever want to partner up and help us with our next one, we're in discussions on what we're going to do next year. Well, I guess
Cool.
it's this year now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this year.
Wow.
It's 2023.
I know.
23. It's my year. I keep,
Yeah. 2025
Kelly keeps-
is my year, so you can have.
Ellie keeps pushing it out. I'm like, no, 2023. I'm taking it. If I keep saying it out loud, I am gonna. What do people say? Not will it to happen.
You're putting it out in the universe.
Yeah, manifesting. I'm
Manifest,
manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna keep saying it out loud so it freaking happens, because I am over where life has been in the past few years and ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. How do you market your business? Is that a tough thing to do? Because it's not a brick and mortar. It's not something you're marketing to everyone in the world. So it's not like, it must be tough.
It is. I'm still stepping into what, like I said, I left my full-time job December 1st. And so the hardest thing that I thought like December 1st, and then I was just going to jump all in and I was going to do all the things and it was going to be great. And, when you have a full-time job, you're like, okay, you go into work and you have these directives and you know what you're supposed to do. And, working at High Vibe in the couple hours outside of that was like, okay, I'm just going to do like the fun stuff. Like I'm going to write a Instagram post and I'm going to work on my Canva and I'm going to send a couple LinkedIn messages. And now it's like, you have to wear all the hats every day. Mm-hmm. And how are you actually moving the needle forward? Not like, this would be fun to do. It's like, no, you have to, you have to know your marketing numbers and you have to know, what your sales funnel really looks like and pour into it every day. One of the things that's interesting is I think that my group is most impactful for people who they know what they want to do, but they just don't quite know how to grow it. And that can be so many people, but they don't necessarily like all live in the same place, if that makes sense. So because it's niche agnostic, it's not like I'm going after, just people who are hairstylists for, curly hair. Like it's just, It's like anyone who feels called to start a business, but wants to be surrounded by other people doing the same thing. It's like, could be so many people. So I actually worked with, you both know Chelsea from the Hive Cowork.
Yeah.
Her and I sat down a couple weeks ago and just kind of like brainstormed sales and marketing process. And that was really, really helpful. Because it's hard to like create the sales and marketing funnel and execute. Like those are two different hats and two different energies and two different mindsets and spaces to be in. So creating space around both of those has been really, really good. I'm just starting to get into like what LinkedIn looks like for marketing for myself. I think a lot of people who want to get into a business or a side hustle or something like that live on there. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question at all.
I have one question and one thing I want to say. One, I was looking at your website and I love, where did I write it down? What I think makes you different than other people who are doing what you do. You say, what actions are you ready to take transform your business. And I love that, because if I'm looking for a group to work with or a coach or a mentor, I want to know that I always see, I'm going to show you this, I'm going to do this for you. I want to know that I'm walking away with something. And I think that's what you offer, and that's what you build with your groups. And I think that's fantastic, and I love that. So I want to let you know that. And
Thanks.
Also, what is it to be a VIP for a day? I want to know more, because Kelly and I want to be VIPs for a day all the time. So what does that mean?
Yeah, so a VIP day is looking at where you want to be 6 to 12 months from now, and building backwards to how to get there, and also setting up what assets, what rituals, what routines, what software do you need to help you get to where you want to be. So whether it's like a financial goal or a number of clients, or wherever you want to be 12 months from now, how do we reverse engineer it? And then how do we take the toolbox that I have of working with entrepreneurs, as far as like email marketing, or your Google Calendar, or a Asana template, or a sales funnel. How do we create your sales funnel so that you can then go out and execute? Because I think a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we want to do everything the hard way, or we find the hardest way to do it. So how can you be super efficient and strategic about what this next, your North Star is this, and how do you filter all of your actions that you're doing, keeping that in mind?
Very cool.
So that's what a VIP day is.
An intensive, I'm working on you day. I love it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So
I love niche agnostic.
Thanks.
I've never heard that term before. Did you make that up?
I think so. It just kind of
Awesome.
popped in my brain one day.
I love it.
It's great though, because it describes what you do in such a defined way that's like easily understandable.
Yeah.
And I love that you have actionable items, and that the people coming have to take responsibility for them. Like, you're not saying, I'm going to transform your business. You're saying, I'm going to give you the tools and the help so that you can transform your business.
Right. It's such a better way to walk away from something like what you're doing. Then, wait, now you're gone. Crap, what do I do? You're really, really setting them up to be successful.
And it chunks it out into like bite-sized pieces. I think for visionaries and people who have big dreams, they see that what they want as the end result, and they're like, well, there's 100 million things I could do to get there. Where do I even start? And so every week it's, what are 2 to 3 things you're going to do? Because you can really chunk it out and say, I could do 2 things this week. But then in a matter of 10 weeks, now you've taken 20 to 30 steps forward towards where you want to be and what your goals are. And so it's really, it's not this huge overnight massive transformation. It's small steps towards where you want to be, with like an idea in mind that's achievable and doable, but also takes into consideration that we have a lot of other things going on,
Right.
'Tis life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
Thanks.
Can you recommend to us 3 amazing business owners that you respect, with women business owners out there?
Yes. So Susan Weiner Ceramics, who I'm drinking this beautiful mug with, in the Rochester area. Chelsea from the Hive, who I also mentioned earlier. And, M. Kobe on Etsy has a really cool Etsy store. I have a lot of artwork from her up in my house. It's beautiful and it's diverse, and it's a women Black-owned business, and it's just, I love her work on Etsy.
Is she local or is she out of town?
She's out of town. I'm not exactly sure where she is, but yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. It's in the notes.
Rashawn, thank you so much. I love that you created this from essentially nothing and that you saw your skill set and what you were strongest at and how to help other people and created a business out of it. And I'm so happy for you, and I'm happy that you've taken the leap, and I think that you're going to see amazing things in 5 years, and I can't wait to read your book.
Oh.
I know.
Thank you, and thanks for having me.
How can people find you if they want to sign up?
Yeah, so I have a website, highvibecowork.com, and there you can find the Mighty Networks login to see those plans as well. And the social media platform I'm most active on is Instagram, so it's at highvibecowork on Instagram.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending the day with us, and thank you for adjusting as life hit us in the butt earlier this week at our originally planned time. But that's business ownership, and that's how that goes. So we appreciate your flexibility.
Yeah, and thank you for everything you do with Bossy. It makes a difference every day. So I'm so glad to be a part of the group.
And we're happy to have you as a part of the group too. All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye. Is it recording?
I'll stop
Recording.
for a minute.